Well, thanks for joining me, Linda. I'm excited to hear about your presentation. So you are the director of the Institute for Dream Studies, author, psychotherapist, professor of consciousness studies. So your Many Worlds of Lucid Dreaming presentation is called the Oneironaut as Outcast. Can you tell me what is that about and what can we expect from your presentation?
Sure. First of all, it's so good to be here with you. I always love getting a chance to talk with other dreamers, and certainly uh, this topic is near and dear to my heart. Speaking of connecting to dreamers, um, I will say that so in the past, I've done a lot of different presentations around specific types of lucid dreaming or dreams. And this year, I decided to go a different route and focus more on the dreamer. In this case, the Oneironaut, or those of us who are embodying that, meaning that some of us have those experiences that might feel strange or different, or that we may have grown up um, with these experiences that may have been maybe not well received. And what I mean by that, I mean it's like uh, when we are experiencing these levels of consciousness, especially at a young age, it may feel very confusing and hard. We may feel like what we would call the other or an outcast when we may not have a family and certainly a community that understands that or welcomes that. And so I have found that certainly in my own experiences at a very young age, being a dreamer and dreamer being my medicine and being a dream traveler, which is what Oneironauts are. I also hold the role of psychopomp. So this is a whole other thing. But just to say that community was really important. And when I was growing up, I really didn't have a lot of context or support around these experiences or just even embodying what that meant. And so it was very challenging growing up, and certainly in community where that might not have been accepted. So I really wanted to focus on that phenomenon because I do see that in other dreamers a lot, certainly in the community, certainly in my work with clients and students, where many people who are dreamers have had that experience of not feeling like they fit in, feeling like alien or other.
Yeah, that's super important. I really love this topic because I know that a lot of people, depending on their environment and their support system or lack of support system, they might not be able to hone in on these skills or they might feel a little crazy or out of place. So that's like really important. Like having that community and just that dialogue has really affected me personally and like my growth as a dreamer. So I know how helpful that is. And especially like one thing I'm really interested too is like giving this dialogue to young children so they can learn at a young age to like harness their dreams. So yeah, that's a really
Yes,
good topic.
that's right. And I was part of a project that we, with Claire Johnson and Jean Campbell, uh, the Sleep Monsters book was really based on that too, about supporting young people, but also supporting families and the community on how to work with, let's say you have a dreamer in your in your family, or if you're a teacher, or anyone who has a child like this, and giving them tools and ways to support so that child doesn't feel isolated or bullied or othered, and that they can have a container and support and community um, to hold those experiences. It's so important. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I always try to normalize dream sharing so that people feel comfortable telling each other when, when you dream of somebody and, even if it's like the barista at Starbucks or whatever. So yeah, I think that's
Right.
really important to like normalize that. And you said Oneironaut. I always say Oneironaut, so maybe I've been pronouncing it wrong. But you said that's dream travel. Yeah, tomato, I guess. But now I'm like reconsidering. But you said that's dream traveler, and then you mentioned psychopomp. Can you like define those for me, and so we can kind of have an idea of like what that means?
Sure, absolutely. I felt like my work as a dreamer and my medicine had a lot to do with working with the underworld realm, meaning that so my as a therapist, I've worked at hospice, I've worked with people who are in deep grief, and I feel like that really started at a very young age. One of my first memories was being in a catacombs and being around bones, and it was so interesting, Amina, that I didn't. It was just such a sharp, clear memory that I had when I was like maybe 3. It was, and I remember my father kind of looking at me like, "What are you talking about?" Because I remember being very confident and comfortable in this world, and it spoke to me in so many ways to say, wow, I have this memory, or I have this knowing, whether it really happened or not. Maybe it happened in another lifetime, maybe who knows? But to me, it started very young that this was going to be my calling, my work, to work with those who have passed over. So a psychopomp would be somebody or a being that helps those who are stuck, maybe needs support transitioning. um, it's the work I do to help people who are in deep grief, who want to find understanding about death. I feel like it's a whole movement right now that we need, like dreaming, that's very taboo, that we feel very separate from death, that it's bringing in more consciousness around that as well. Um, so I would say that a lot of my work is connected to the ancestors too, connecting to the people who have passed over, um, and getting knowledge and doing the work, so to speak. Like I often say, I have another job at night sometimes where I feel like I'm doing this work elsewhere in these other realms, and then as well as doing the work here with people. So yeah, so it's a very specific kind of calling, if
Yeah, it's
that
important
kind of.
work. Yeah, and interdimensional important work for sure. I definitely feel like, it kind of goes along with our mission here, the things we do in the dream space or the in-between space. And I definitely think dreams and death are related. Like, I don't have a fear of death really because I feel like my dreams have kind of prepared me for this adventure in consciousness. So I think that's a really cool similarity there. Yeah.
There it is, and you said it beautifully. Feel like outcasts, I believe, or other, because we are so connected, and that state is so natural to us, that we have one foot in that world and one foot here, that that could feel very strange or intimidating, for others who may not quite understand what these experiences are. And on the flip side, being so comfortable in that world, this world might feel very strange for us because we don't quite fit in such a concretized world. So that's why I feel like talking to other dreamers and people like you, helps normalize, like you said, like it brings that consciousness, and and then we're not so ostracized or othered, that we can have a safe place to explore all these different experiences, right? That we may not have had, especially growing up. It could feel really, really hard.
Yeah, yeah, that's an important way to look at it. I didn't even think about both sides. You know, you have the new skeptics growing in their journey, and then the people that are already, psychonauts or oneironauts, and, learning how to integrate that into the waking. That balance can be really important. So cool. I know you touched on it, but is there one key takeaway that you want people to take away from your presentation?
Oh my gosh. I mean, just to even acknowledge this and have a safe, sacred place to um, share our stories, to explore together. I think there's so much healing. I know for myself, it took many years for me to find my community, and that's why I love ISD and IDS, and as well as these conferences, because they do bring people like us together. And I love the forum parts of, especially the many worlds of lucid dreaming. And before that was cyber dreaming, where we could connect and actually talk and say, "Oh, did you experience this?" I mean, I love those threads where we can actually normalize, like, "Oh yeah, I've had that too." And so I wanted to take that to the next level, to actually have a presentation where we could come together as a community and actually share these experiences and these stories. Um, so again, right, to normalize as well, because this is such important work. And I think the timing of it right now is really interesting too, especially in this day and age where we may have so much distraction that we need this time to sit and connect and find and then another part of the presentation is really about reaccessing the magical child, the part that got wounded, the part that was so pure and magical and joyous in this work. uh it's so important that we reclaim that, if that makes sense, to access that part so that we can uh, repair and be able to heal some of this othering that had happened, especially when we were growing up, and still does. We still experience these things.
Yes, definitely. I like to think back to like my child self when I was more imaginative before, society started impacting, beliefs and expectations and all of that. So that makes a lot of sense. I think that's really important. Cool. And so what about your personal lucid dreaming experience? How long have you been a lucid dreamer? What are your favorite things to do in your dreams?
Great question. Well, it's interesting. I started talking about myself as a child, and I didn't really understand what was going on back then. And I think I know more now. I think I was having quite a bit of out of body experiences. And one of the things that I think is really powerful is where we dream, because we can pick up a lot from the land we're living in. We can also pick up on ancestral land. So I think for me, the hypnagogic state was very prominent, in the sense that I could I could pick up on things that were in the field, if that makes sense. I don't know if you can see. I live in the redwood forest, and so much of my experiences were were connecting to this particular part of the world, the land, and that included like elemental beings, to history, like what happened on the land. And that started when I was very young, but I just didn't know what was going on. So it was neat to have the community and knowing around these experiences uh, with the actual experience itself. So I started to connect with the land. I was expressing my psychopompic lucid dreaming, so that would be visits. Like I would pop in to other realms where people were deceased and connect with them. So that was another aspect of the lucidity. I have had a series of portal dreams. So this phenomena happened, gosh, probably around 2007, 2008, where I would be in a dream. And then somehow I'd look to my right and upper corner of the dream, and then a portal would appear. And it became this theme that would happen over time. And so the portals themselves would be different. So I'd have anything from these points of light, star tunnels, to membranes, to black hole. The portals were really fascinating. And then they would shoot me into this other realm where I would have this lucidity. And so I started exploring this idea of these portals, these wormholes, connecting that to quantum physics. And it was really one of the neat deep dives I did around lucid dreaming during that time. Um, how dreamers were experiencing what physicists were theorizing about. And it was just really wild to see these parallels that were going on um, with my own experiences of wormholes and yeah, and quantum physics, right?
Yeah,
So
I love that. That's so cool. Yeah, I think dreaming is going to be a big part of the next phase of science and human evolution. So I'm really excited for to see where that goes.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, that's all the questions I had for today. I will see you
Okay.
online in the forums of the many worlds of lucid dreaming.
That's wonderful. I look forward to seeing you there, Mina. And please join us. We're quite a great, quirky crew.
Yes. There's such a good
Commit-
panel of presentations this year. I'm really excited for them.
Yes, me too.